You're my brother's wife, so everything you own is ours, my sister-in-law Catalina said over the phone. I clenched my phone tighter, feeling my anger grow. Carson didn't say a word next to her, and I knew exactly what they wanted. My money, my time, my life. I had let it slide for too long, but not anymore. I finally whispered, "I've already contacted the police." There was a long silence on the line. They had no idea what was coming. I'm 31 years old. My husband Carson is 34, and we've been married for 2 years. Lately, I've been contemplating divorce every single day. I just don't get along with my in-laws. They include my father-in-law, a company employee, my mother-in-law, who works part-time, and my sister-in-law Catalina, her husband Miguel, and their 3 kids who live just 5 minutes away. My brother-in-law is currently working abroad. Carson and I are both full-time employees and live in an apartment an hour away from my in-laws, with no children yet. At the beginning, when we met each other's families, I thought we were going to get along. My in-laws praised me, complained about their son, and joked around together. So we got married. The wedding was a hit with the guests, and we honeymooned in Taiwan. That's where I met an elderly Canadian man at breakfast. I had lost a hotel coupon, and I was going to buy some souvenirs with it. I told him, "We haven't used ours yet, and we have 2. Do you want one?" But suddenly the old man's attitude shifted, and he tried to leave. Carson was staring at him sternly. Before I knew it, the old man had left. Carson yelled, "Why would you give a beggar something so easily?" I responded, "He didn't even ask for it, and we weren't going to use it anyway. He was just in need." Carson sneered, "There you go again, playing the hero." I didn't mean it that way at all, and I was stunned by his comment. I had planned to give the coupon to the elderly man before he checked out, but he had written blessings on the envelope. I thought to myself that it was too small and embarrassing for anyone to read, but I managed to drop it off at the front desk without any issues. Carson and I had a cold war for a while after that. I didn't want a divorce then, but I couldn't help worrying about what would come next. When we flew back home, issues began right away, as I feared. The problem stemmed from Catalina. She was expecting twins 3 months after our wedding. Carson asked me, "Is it okay if I give her your contact information? She wants to talk to you about something." I had no idea what she wanted to discuss, so I kept putting off answering. But Carson eventually told me, "I've already given her your contact info." The next day, Catalina called and said, "We'll be relying on you a lot from now on. Since we're family, you know how hard it is to raise 3 kids, right? You'll definitely be helpful as a stay-at-home wife. Keep your schedule open for the next year and a half." When I asked if she meant I should help with child rearing, she just laughed, saying, "It's something like an at-home job." She wouldn't listen to me after that. When I told Carson about it, he said, "My sister is right. Now that we're married, you're part of the family. She doesn't need to ask you beforehand to help. If she's short on help, can't she ask her mom or husband's side of the family?" I was confused and asked, "Isn't that something they should manage?" Carson just replied, "It doesn't matter. For now, you're responsible for picking up and dropping off the older child while Catalina's in the hospital." But the distance to Catalina's house was over an hour by car, and the back and forth every day to match the children's schedule would eat up half of my day. I couldn't understand why Carson let his sister take advantage of me like this. He just grinned and said, "You're the hero, so of course, you'll help your sister-in-law." His persistence was wearing me down. The next day, I went to my in-laws' house to refuse all of Catalina's requests. But when she asked me to pick up and drop off her nephew again, I firmly told her, "I can't do it. I have work and the distance is too much." My parents-in-law scolded me, saying, "Where's your compassion? Didn't your parents teach you better? This is outrageous." My father-in-law added, "A wife's role is to serve her husband, parents-in-law, and sister-in-law, and live to serve the family." It was beyond absurd. My parents-in-law, seeing my response, seemed to think I had finally understood. My mother-in-law said, "Fine, but make sure you do your duties as a wife properly, including for Carson's family." They pushed me to help for a year and a half. But if I did, it would mean over 4 hours of travel every day, seriously affecting my work. When I told Carson, he spoke to his parents and convinced them that I wouldn't be expected to help until a month after the birth. That was the only way they would let me off the hook for now. A month later, Catalina began bringing her 3 children over every weekend. The water was left running, the air conditioning on full blast, the refrigerator emptied, and tissues and toilet paper were always used up. My precious metal items had vanished. On top of that, Catalina took my car without asking, going on errands without even informing me. If she wanted to borrow it, she should have at least told me. But she didn't listen, and now my car was scratched and dented. I sent an email to her husband, Miguel, but he didn't respond, just a red receipt. Soon, Carson and Catalina started leaving their kids with me while they went out. The playdates became more frequent, and I was left caring for 3 kids while trying to catch up on housework. One weekend, after leaving the kids with me, Catalina and Carson went out. On Monday, I checked my bank account and was shocked to find my balance had dropped from $50,000 to just a few $100s. Upon further inspection, I saw that large amounts had been withdrawn multiple times over the past 6 months. I suspected fraudulent activity, and after consulting the bank, I set up a trap to catch the thief. The following weekend, Catalina left her kids with me again. My in-laws were at a hot spring trip. They had the nerve to say, "You should learn about childcare for the future. You're lucky to learn for free." The next day, when I didn't answer Catalina's repeated calls, she bombarded me with messages. I finally picked up, and she yelled, "I can't withdraw money." "What's going on?" I acted confused, saying, "I don't know what you're talking about." She cursed at me, and then Carson grabbed the phone, shouting, "We didn't have enough credit this month, so we decided to pay cash for the trip. But now we can't withdraw any money." I calmly asked, "Whose account is it?" "Mine, right? Why is your sister trying to use my money without permission?" Carson was silent but then snapped, "That doesn't matter. We can't afford to pay for our stay at the inn like this. We don't even have enough money to get home by train." My father-in-law and mother-in-law chimed in from the background. "That's right. Let's talk about this when we get back home. Just send some money to our son's account right away." I responded, cold and irritated. "You heard me. I can't transfer the money." The tension in the air thickened as I finally decided to involve the police. The silence on the other end of the phone was almost unbearable. After a long pause, they nervously asked, "Police? Why?" I couldn't help but laugh. If someone's been taking money out of my account without my permission, it's only right to report it. Catalina's voice shrieked through the phone. "You're my brother's wife, right? Everything you have belongs to the family, so it's okay for me and my family to use it. Don't you get that?" I shot back, "I don't understand that twisted logic at all." My father-in-law immediately began shouting, "There's no way theft can happen between family members." My mother-in-law backed him up. "Of course, family doesn't steal from each other," she added. I asked, "So theft between family members isn't punishable by law?" Without missing a beat, my father-in-law proudly declared, "Of course not. Why even ask?" I responded sharply, "Well, my sister-in-law and I aren't living together, so we're not exempt from the law." There was an awkward silence on the line. Carson, now clearly frustrated, asked, "So, are you planning on suing my sister?" I responded calmly, "Yes, I will sue her. And I'm also consulting about the other stolen items, like the precious metals Catalina took without permission." Catalina interjected, "Do you have proof of that?" I replied, "Your flea market app account is already identified. Items that were taken from me are posted there, along with pictures of the warranty certificates. They can be traced back to me." Her voice cracked as she began to cry. Then Carson shouted angrily, "How dare you make my sister cry? Apologize to her." I stood firm. I'm a person of principle. I won't ignore wrongdoing. I'm preparing for a divorce, and you'll have to pay compensation and go through proper property division. He let out a bitter laugh. "Divorce? You think I'm going to give in to you? You won't be begging me to stay, and I won't pay any compensation." I remained unfazed. "I have proof of how difficult you and your family have made my marriage. I'll expose everything in court." He shouted, "What do you mean by witnesses?" Just then, Miguel, Catalina's husband, spoke up from the other end of the line. "It's me, your sister's husband. As a family member, I've witnessed a lot of your wrongdoings," he said calmly. "When I realized money was being withdrawn from my account without permission, the bank told me that if there's no record in the passbook, the most likely culprit is someone who has access to the cash card and PIN. Unfortunately, in cases like this, it's often family members. Miguel continued, I made a plan. I transferred about $3,000 to the account that was used without my permission and left the statement in a visible spot. I also changed the PIN. This way, even if Catalina tried to use the old PIN, the card would be locked after 3 failed attempts. I smiled to myself, knowing this was the trap that would expose Carson and his family. When I discovered the unauthorized withdrawals, I learned from the bank that the most likely suspect is someone who knows the PIN and can access the card. Unfortunately, in most cases like this, it's a family member. So I set up a trap. I transferred $3,000 from another account to the one used without permission and left the statement where it could be easily found. At the same time, I changed the PIN, ensuring that if Catalina tried to use the old one, the card would be locked after 3 incorrect attempts. I also left a note for Catalina, mentioning how great the view at the hot springs was, but reminding her that payment was cash only. It's rare these days, isn't it, Carson? I joked as I left the note. Then I sent a detailed email to Miguel, exposing how Catalina had left her children in my care, neglecting her household duties, and how her unsanitary house was where the children were living. I also pointed out that my in-laws were turning a blind eye to all of it. Miguel replied quickly, saying, I've taken time off work to deal with this family crisis. I've had suspicions about my wife's handling of the children for a while now. Catalina, upon hearing this, shot back, Don't make a scene. I'll divorce you, but you won't get custody. Miguel didn't say anything more, his silence betraying the gravity of the situation. Miguel and I then teamed up and consulted lawyers. I planned to claim compensation for the misappropriated money and property, while Miguel aimed to gain custody of their children in the divorce. During a phone conversation with Catalina, Miguel calmly said, Do you think you can just get away with this? Catalina had no response as Miguel continued, I found something interesting while I was looking into your family background. You left your kids with me and went out partying all night long. Catalina was silent. I couldn't believe how thoughtless they were, leaving their children in someone else's care while they partied. I never expected them to be so reckless. I informed Miguel that my belongings were already packed and moved out of our apartment. Since it was company property, the cleaning service would be coming in next week, and he should leave as soon as possible. Miguel, after taking the children to his parents' home, had no intention of allowing Catalina to see them. The house was in his name, so he planned to sell it quickly and told her to leave immediately. We blocked all further communication with Catalina and Carson. Though Catalina and Carson desperately tried to return, they couldn't pay for their stay at the inn, and were reported to the police for eating and drinking without settling the bill. After some harsh reprimands, they signed a memo promising to pay as soon as they got home, and managed to return by taking a regular train. As they promised, they left divorce papers behind. Everyone was exhausted after dealing with the aftermath, including seeing Catalina's empty house and apartment. Thanks to an efficient lawyer, I received a lump sum payment for compensation. Miguel and I finalized our divorce, and he successfully won custody of the children. As for my former in-laws, they were pressured by Catalina and Carson to release their family home, which would be used to pay off the compensation and debts. It wasn't enough, so both Catalina and Carson had to borrow money and became guarantors. The bills from the nightclubs they frequented were hefty, and both of them worked tirelessly to repay their debts. As for me, I've had enough of marriage for now. I need time to focus on myself, including recovering from the emotional toll of dealing with my ex-husband. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video. Stay stunned.